All right. So today I'm going over an extremely simple way to fix your system file history backup if you ran into a problem like I did, where you couldn't do this. So if I go here, like so, and you go here, this guy basically explains how to properly restore onto a new computer from an old file history backup. However, as he says in here, people make a huge mistake with this button right here. And even if you click this button, you can still screw this up. So I believe that Windows did a really poor job of upgrading from their Windows 7 version of this, which is actually Windows. I should be able to go Windows 7. Let's go restore. There's a restore. Okay. Basically, there was an old way of doing this, which is here, right? This was the old way of doing it. However, they upgraded to this new version, and it's really easy to screw it up. And even if you do it this way, you can still screw up this process. So this is kind of the easiest way that I've found, which is just writing it in Java. You could write in PowerShell. Python is pretty easy if you know how to do file folder traversals in Python, which is also, it's actually easier code than this. It's very, very, very simple code. It's actually a matter of lines versus all of these. However, I like Java and C++ and other languages like that just because you can really see what's going on. Python really is a powerful language, so you don't really know what's going on. It's basically, sometimes I see it as magic. I'm pretty good with Python, and I actually don't like writing in it that much because I know how to write in other languages, and in a lot of other languages you can actually, it's much more of a granular outlook on what's actually happening. Python just kind of gives you a few lines, you import every module under the sun, and then you write like 3 lines of code and you never know what's going on, especially if you're trying to explain it. Anyways, basically, I was doing some searching around for how to easily do this, and I'll show you what the problem was. So, with file history and the backup system Windows has, it uses these, which are UTC codes, this thing at the end here. UTC codes that has a date, and then it just says UTC. Basically, the idea is every time it does a backup and it needs to back up the file again, like in this case there are copies, like this is a copy of this, right? Like it creates copies, creates another backup. Anyways, it's basically just creating 2 of them when it does it. So here and here. Did it at the same time, but it created a backup of it. So anyways, what we want to do is we want to go through all of the backup data, remove all copies, and just take out the UTC code. If we do that, then what we can do is just transfer the files over to our new system, right? So it's not as easy and convenient and a little platform dependent, even though it's always going to be on Windows in this case, so don't have to worry about that as much. But and the backslashes versus forward slashes will never change. It's always forward slashes. You know, you're never going to have or I'm sorry, it's always, what am I saying? It's always backslashes on Windows, like right here, because we have to do an escape for it. But it's always backslashes on Windows, always forward slashes in Linux, Unix, Mac OS, all that. But on here, it doesn't matter. It's always going to be backslashes because it's a Windows feature. Anyways, that is frankly one of the biggest considerations and the hardest considerations, even though it's not hard at all, right? Outside of that, it's really straightforward code. Basically, all it's saying is it's going to go through, it's going to start at a base directory. I pass in this base directory, which is from an old file history backup of mine. It's a testing one that I use to mess around with. It's just a copy of another backup that I made, and as you can see. And basically, it's starting in my main user account folder, right? That's actually what's backed up. All the data in that folder is what was backed up. And it's like, I don't know, 30 folders with a bunch of data in each folder, and then it goes folder, 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 or directory, directory, right? Keeps going and going, which is why there's this recursion, okay? Anyways, pretty straightforward if you've worked with recursive code before, or folder traversal. Anyways, it comes down here, and it basically says, okay, we have this really long string, right? This is its absolute path. It basically takes the absolute path, chops off all of this, and just gets the file name itself. And then it uses some regex to basically say, or just regular expressions, to basically say if there's a space and then this UTC code, which is what is in every single one, which is how they do it, right? There's a space and then there's a UTC code and then dot some file name. In this case, there was a torrent file for Arch Linux. Anyways, we come over here and it will basically be, okay, just do that to every single one. Just regex it with this pattern. And then we just create a new file and we create an old file based on, we're pretty much just putting it back together, but we're basically saying put it back together. And this was actually kind of a little bit redundant here. I didn't have to do this because I already had this, but I did it anyways just for the verbosity of it, just to show you, okay, so we're taking this base directory here, we're adding the backslash, and then we're adding the original file name, which could be like any of these, right? These are all the file names. Okay. And then it just says, take the old file, which is this name, the old file name, rename it to this without the UTC code, and then it says file renamed. However, if there's a copy, if it's already done this, right? So if it's already gone to this one, for instance, and renamed it, if we try renaming this one, since it's the same name, it won't work. It'll say, oh no, it doesn't work. So what we come in here and do, literally the only time this can happen is if there's a conflict in name. So we just delete the old file, which is the new one we're trying to change the name of, and then it's just going to print out. I just had it print out copy deleted. However, it's a little, I personally don't like always printing something out. I'm actually going to get rid of this now, but I don't personally always like printing something out or printing a lot out. Just because it's when there are like thousands of them, it's a little harder to manage and watch. However, it's really simple what's actually be printing here. Either it was renamed or it was deleted. Now I had one other thing printing out, and that was the new name after the regex, but I know that works, so I'm not even going to look at it. But basically, if I do this, and if I change this base directory to just be the downloads folder, if we do this, now this is the one that I'm referring to right now here. Okay, and we can see, so this is with all the copies, we'll see these basically just get trimmed down to only one version of the file with the UTC code removed. All files will be renamed and all copies will be removed. And you don't have to understand all the code, but it's pretty simple. Anyways, I will have the link to the source code in the description for sure to my GitHub page, and I'll show you how to just compile and run it. Basically, if you have VS Code and you know how to run it, pretty simple. You just hit run, right? If you just download the Java extension, you can hit run or debug, or you can just do, so just make sure we're in the right place. You can just use your SDK, your Java runtime environment, with your software development kit, or yeah, sorry, your little standard, you could get SE, the standard edition JDK, and just go Java, and we want to compile it. So this is how you do it. I don't know what your level of programming is here, but it's really basic Java. If you want to learn what I'm doing, I'd just watch like an introductory course, a really, really short course, and they'll go over all the stuff I'm doing here. So we're just going to compile it, and then I can just run it. So here we go. Now you're going to see a bunch of stuff getting printed out, and the stuff over here is going to get trimmed down. So we're going to go here. So now, there it goes, right? So now if we go, all UTC codes are removed. Every single UTC code's removed, and all copies, so with the same name one, see, they're all different names now. All the copies are removed. So now, after you go through your entire directory, you can now, and actually this includes these, I don't know if you thought of that, but basically this should go in here and do all these inner directories as well. So, which is exactly what it did. If we go back here, we notice there are no UTC codes, right? So we can go here, and if you want to see it, you can go here. We'll just pretend that's not what that is. And perfect anyway, so I'll clear this. And yeah, it's pretty simple. So that's really all there is to it. Now what I can do, we're going to see a lot of printout now. I'm going to do everything in my backup, which is this main root directory, right? That's how file history works, at least. So I'll run this. I can either javac it again, or you can just, use the nice extension, which is why VS Code is awesome. You don't have to get Eclipse or IntelliJ. I used to use IntelliJ. IntelliJ is awesome by NetBeans, but VS Code is just so much more lightweight by far. I use it instead, so we can just go here, 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 and now it's going to go through every single one. This is going to take a while. It's going to take a while. The other thing to kind of help me see where it's at is I could either give a count of how many files have been changed, or give a count of how many times this method itself is actually run, which we could use a static int for. I could go static int. A static int will basically create a counter that will be available for all calls of this function, and we can just update it. So it'll basically be like, okay, the function's been called once, that means it's in one directory. Now the function's been called 390,000 times, so we've been in that many directories. You could do something like that just because it's a recursive function. So something like that anyways, if you wanted to mess around with it or see where it's at. However, just let this run. I don't know, honestly, how long mine's going to take, because mine is massive. But, it could take a couple hours. It could take a few hours, which sucks. However, this is like the backup plan. This is basically the last resort for fixing file history if you want access to all of your files again without the UTC code thing getting in the way, because it will. If you try loading in, like for instance, if you had, this is actually an issue I had, if you have a repository, if you have like a VS Code project, or I should say a Visual Studio Code project. Visual Studio Code projects come with a lot of boilerplate, right? The source code and all the boilerplate won't even load in properly because of the naming convention. That's one example where having the UTC code screws everything up. It basically won't even be a usable file anymore. So you want to rename them. This works. So I've tested this. This works. Again, I'll have the link in the description, and I hope this works for you. I really wish Windows would make this, and the Microsoft team as a whole would make things like this a lot easier for people. But whatever, this is a workaround anyways. So I'm happy I got it working for myself, because I really need the files that I'm doing this to. And yeah, I hope it works for you. Please leave a comment comment down below. Please like if you liked it. Please subscribe if you want to see more. And yeah, that's all. All right.